Hello,
Hi Alex, how you doing? You okay?
I'm good, Sonny. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Thanks for your time today.
Good,
Thanks for
good.
joining us.
Oh, no, you're welcome. Appreciate the invite.
Not all, not all. So obviously there's lots for us to discuss. I know we had heavyweight British talks on our minds, and obviously Derek Chisora in the news looking to fight in April against Deontay Wilder. I was at the IBA tournament where they had their face-off together on stage
Oh,
last night
yeah.
here in Dubai, and that seemed to be the initial hype for it. At first, it seemed like they were just doing it for the cameras. At first, it looked like they were doing it for show, and obviously now that seems to have come into play. So it seems like that could be a fight happening in the UK in April.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? It looks like Chisora is about to sign it if he hasn't already signed the papers for this.
Yeah, well, look, with these two names, no matter the losses they rack up or anything like that, you're always going to tune in for Deontay Wilder and Derek Chisora.
Yeah,
Personalities alone gives them so much pull with the fans. I think Deontay Wilder, the journey that we've seen him on, from being this knockout artist who's just clearing out the entire division. People forget just how good that run was that Deontay Wilder went on until he bumped into Tyson Fury.
yeah,
And then since then, certain things happening with his personal life or whatever, and people think what he was doing outside of the ring wasn't inducive to being a knockout heavyweight fighter. Possibly he'd softened in his personal life, and that came across in the ring. Durability question marks. Had
yeah.
Tyson Fury unlocked the way to beat Deontay Wilder? And let's face it, since that trilogy, Wilder hasn't been the same fighter since. But a trilogy like that will take a lot out of any fighter. As for Derek Chisora, the guy just keeps going. He just keeps The amount of times that boxing fans have written him off, have said, "Okay, this is the last dance." I don't know how. I think we've lost count of how many last dances Derek Chisora has had.
He keeps
Uh,
coming back, doesn't he?
he keeps coming back. But what a character! He's going to be one of these guys who, once he does eventually retire, people are going to remember. I'm sure he'll stick around the scene, but people will just think what a character he was. Never turned anyone down, never ducked the big fights. Great personality for the sport. So for these two icons to face each other, regardless of where they are in their careers, I can't wait for it.
I think it's a big heavyweight bash, isn't it? Deontay's still got the power, and
Hmm.
he's still a household name. He was in really good spirits when I saw him in Dubai, as was Chisora. Chisora was still, that big personality,
Yeah.
still getting across with the fans there. So he was doing all the media sort of interviews and getting involved with people. And when he was on stage with Deontay Wilder, you could see he wanted it. You could see
Mm.
Wilder was like, you know what? I could get in on this as well because I think like they're at their last stage of their careers, so it could be like a nice payday for both of them, and it kind of finishes on a kind of high, I suppose, for both fighters. I mean, if it's in the UK, this is massive. You get Deontay Wilder to come and fight at Wembley. Chisora is fighting at Wembley. He's obviously got the
Yeah.
British fans behind him. This could be a really big crossover American British fight, I think.
It's interesting that you say he's still got the knockout power because that's the question, isn't it? Like, I know he flatlined his last opponent who was at a few levels below, but the thing for me is it the look, he had Joseph Parker and Zhile Zhang,
Yeah.
both guys who aren't really going to try and get under his skin during the build up, very respectful fighters. Before that, Tyson Fury, which in that first Tyson Fury fight, perhaps we saw the best version of Deontay Wilder. Derek Chisora loves winding people up. He loves
He
getting under
does.
people's skin. Could that be a key to? I'd love to know what you think. Could that be a key to unlocking the old Deontay Wilder? Do you think?
I think so. I think when I saw them on stage and they were going at it like it was
Yeah,
meant to be just a friendly kind of face off. They put their noses to each other and you could see they were both pushed. Derek was given as much as as
yeah.
Wilder was. They were like proper going for it, and even like we were all like, "What's going on here? Like, is this a new announcement for 2026?" I mean, it was meant to be, but they kind of facilitated with all the media that was there to make it to hype it up for what could be a spring 2026 fight. I know that Usyk was obviously calling out at that point in time, Wilder, and all the press were saying, "Oh, Wilder, Usyk's calling you out. Are you up for this fight?" And he was like, "Absolutely." He's just been undisputed. Okay, he's had to vacate the belt WBO to Fabio, but and WBC, but he's still like the guy. He's the number one person. He was pound for pound. Usyk was the guy, and Wilder was like, "Surely this has got to be my last payday. This has got to be my last big fight." But obviously, Chisora is now coming in because obviously if that fight does happen between Usyk and against Wilder, it's looking like it could be in America in July. I know Usyk is currently talking to Dana White's new company, Zuffa Boxing, and they seem to be in talks for something that could be happening in the summer, and it could be the Wilder fight. But first, I think this April bout that's looking to get signed is the real juicy one for us diehard boxing fans, and especially for the British public.
Yeah, I guess it kind of depends where Deontay Wilder is, because obviously if you've got an Usyk fight on the cards, you want to minimize the risk of that not happening. And Derek Chisora is a hard night's work for anyone. He's
Yeah.
proved that over his career. So it's interesting you bring up the fight with Usyk. 'Cause I remember, I think it was on an interview when they were at the WBC convention. He first mentioned, "I want Wilder so that he
Yeah.
can really tick off that whole generation." So if that is the case, and if Usyk signs with Dana White, if he signs with anyone and makes it clear that Wilder is going to be that next fight, could that put this one in jeopardy?
I always thought that this would be essentially Chisora and, well, probably more Wilder's tune-up fight to go
Mm,
before he fights Usyk because there needs to be some kind of name or there needs to be
yeah.
some fight for he can't just immediately we go, right, okay, April fight the undisputed guy,
Hmm.
the huge heavyweight that's beaten Tyson Fury twice, that's beaten Anthony Joshua twice. Is that a fight that he should go in straight away? I was talking to Johnny Nelson about this in Dubai at the IBA tournament as well, and I didn't think that it was a good one for Wilder to go in straight away. But yeah, is this a fight that happens first? Is it a tune-up fight for him to see has he like you said, has he still got that knockout power? Has he got the credibility to fight someone who's as technical as an Alexander Usyk? And we might be able to see something in this April fight if it does go ahead.
That what you said there, it should be a tune-up fight. And if you look at their resumes, it should be a tune-up fight purely because of all the title defenses Wilder had and Derek Chisora never quite getting to that
Yeah.
level. So the level should be different. But if you remember that Joe Joyce fight against Derek Chisora, that's one that'll stay with me for a while. Chisora will just keep coming.
Yeah.
And that was always the thing that people said about Wilder is he'd lose the first 10 rounds of a fight and then knock them out. I remember against Luis Ortiz. There's so many fights where Wilder was getting outskilled on the feet, but obviously the bronze bomber he'd just deliver that right hand and get another knockout. So the durability against Derek Chisora and the fact that he will keep moving forward, this could potentially be a horrendous matchup for Wilder.
I think is like you said, there's so much for Wilder on the line here because he's really had heavyweight glory, hasn't he? He's been
Mm,
there. He's been sort of suggested as the hardest hitter in boxing. Does he have the impact? Can he walk through Chisora? Chisora, like you said, he's not an easy opponent for anyone
no.
on any night. And could Chisora give him that kind of tough fight that maybe Wilder hangs up his gloves and says, "Do you know what? I've had enough. I wanted to come back and see if I still had it in me, but is this ultimately too much?" It's honestly for me, it's a really hard one to call. These are two heavyweights who have kind of probably solidified their places within the heavyweight division, and they're definitely
Hmm.
past their prime, both of them. But there is, I think, a little bit in the tank left for both fighters to just put that last showcase on for boxing fans, for that really enjoy heavyweight boxing and want to see these two get together, like and go head to head.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the interesting thing about this fight is the questions that it raises, right? You know, when two prime fighters, like let's say Dalton Smith and Adam Azim, if they're fighting each other, you know that barring any kind of injury, they're going to be at their absolute peak of their powers. We will find out who the best fighter is. With this Wilder Chisora, it's all the unknown, isn't it? It's the
Yeah.
questions. Has Derek Chisora aged overnight? Will all those wars take their toll? Like we're so used to seeing fighters coming like Joe Joyce, for example, having this granite chin, so many wars, but eventually you run into a Zhilei Zhang, and then you are a compromised fighter moving forward. Joe Joyce was never the same after that fight. So has Chisora aged? Has Deontay Wilder refound some of that hunger, some of that drive, some of that killer instinct? That's what intrigues me about this one.
Absolutely. And if it does go ahead and it gets signed next week, I'm sure we're all going to be really looking forward to it. And
Mm.
it's a hard one to call, isn't it? Like you said, it's I think it's one for the fans. It's
Yeah,
definitely one for the
yeah.
boxing fans, and they'll enjoy it. Will it live up to the hype? I truly hope so, because I feel like at this point in their career, it's them giving their all for the kind of their last fight, their last matchup where they can really call retirement after this, I think. Because I'll be honest with you, I didn't think Wilder was actually really going to come back into
Same.
boxing. And Chisora hadn't really, he'd been on the scene, but there wasn't anyone sort of on a list for him to fight. There was no one was saying, okay, we've got this fight for Chisora coming forward. But since they had this face-off in Dubai, this seems to have given some hype and some marketing and credibility towards that matchup.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with all of that. Like you say, it should be a treat for the fans. Either way, there's going to be stages of that fight, should it go 12 rounds, where they both probably do look like quite old men. I think that's just
Mm.
the nature of it. No fault of their own. It's just the nature of reality.
Yeah,
But there will be flashes from both of them. That's one thing you can almost guarantee. A big right hand will land from Wilder. Chisora will be on his chest, in his face. You're going to have those vintage moments, which, look, you're going to watch it. I'm going to watch it. Everyone who is a boxing fan who's followed either of these guys' careers is going to watch that fight.
absolutely. And I know that we were talking before, obviously the call we were mentioning Fury. Obviously he's
Yeah.
currently in training camp at
Yeah.
the moment. Now, it's interesting to see where Fury goes now at this point in his career. Again, he's someone who has called out retirement several times and says he wants back in now. What do we think is lined up for him this year with Frank Warren? What is his plan?
I'm not sure even Tyson Fury knows the answer to that one, but I think, look, we mentioned that opponent, one of the best trilogies in heavyweight history, him and Deontay Wilder. That trilogy, even though Tyson Fury emerged victorious from it, that took a hell of a lot out of both fighters. Neither fighter is going to be the same after a trilogy like that. Wilder was down so many times, so was Fury. And I think since then, he has been a slightly different fighter. I'm not saying that his nerves gone or anything like that, but you do physiologically, psychologically, you change after wars like that. And I think that we've still seen him put on excellent performances. The fights against Usyk admits himself that Fury's been his hardest opponent.
Yeah.
So what's next for Tyson Fury? It's such a good question. Obviously, the AJ fight is the one we're aiming for. I've seen clips of not, I wouldn't have spoken on this before, but AJ has posted clips about him back in the gym, back training. And that could be for his own mental well-being rather than actually preparing for a fight. But I do believe we will see that towards the end of the year, maybe even start of 2027. We're looking now, but I think Fury needs to. The tune-up fights thing frustrates me a little bit because
Mm.
both of these guys have been professional for such a long time now. They've been in so many training camps. They've been consistently fighting against elite level opposition. I don't want to see too much of a drop off
Yeah.
for in terms of level of competition right now, because in my opinion, that kind of preparation can be done in sparring. I know it's
Mm.
different being under the lights, the not the weight cuts, the heavyweights, but just the general fight camp preparation is different than sparring. I get that. But for him to be sharp, it needs to be against a recognizable name, either a world title eliminator. That I know they're speaking about the Fabio Wardley fight. I think that's a really interesting one. I think, with that being said, I think that probably is the fight right now which intrigues me the most.
Well, I was with Fabio again last month, and he was mentioning that he was looking for the winner of a Usyk Wilder, which obviously hasn't been
Yeah.
signed yet. But now, obviously, he's considering Tyson Fury, and that name has been called out and mentioned in the media as well.
He will
And
fight anyone.
he
That's
seems
one
to
thing.
be up for it.
Fabio Wardley, what an incredible story. Gone are the days of white collar talk, anything like that. He's
Yeah.
a world champion now, bona fide world champion. Fabio Wardley will fight anyone. That is one thing I'm convinced about. You see fighters, cameras in their face, not wanting to call out names necessarily, which you can understand. Everyone's got their own career path. But
Yeah.
Fabio Wardley, like you say, he'll fight the winner of Usyk Wilder. He will fight Tyson Fury. He's just game. He loves the game clearly, and he's chasing that greatness.
Does Ajit come into this at all? Obviously, after his win in Germany a
It's
couple of
tricky.
weeks
Did he
ago.
say he's not going to fight Fury? Was that right? Because of the Spencer Brown training
Yeah,
camp connection.
it seemed like that, and then there's so much happening with other talks. We've got American promoters, Dimitri Wilder, who's put forward Brandon Moore,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
wants to
yeah, yeah.
now come in and fight Tyson Fury. And is there consideration for that? I personally think it's probably more of an all British, like you're saying, like a Fabio
Yeah.
against Fury. That seems to be kind of higher stakes. That seems to be a bigger fight at the moment. But everyone
Yeah.
wants that little piece of Tyson Fury now that he's back in training camp. He seems to be sparring again. He seems to be going for jogs in the morning.
Hmm.
Physically, he's keeping himself obviously active and fit because the longer he's out of the ring at his weight, obviously he'll put on weight and he's going to be, out of shape and things like that. So he seems to be at the moment quite controlled in his camp. Like he's training, but there hasn't been a fight announced or anything like that. But he's conditioning himself and getting ready for a fight that we need to see, but we don't know who the opponent is yet.
Is that one of the reasons why you think that? Because the heavyweight, you look at the top 10, the top 15, very few, if any, are matched, have matches lined up, have fights lined up. Do you think it was whoever blinks first? You're waiting for those belts to fragment, see what goes where, eliminator fights and things like that. Because, like you say, there's all these rumors and who might fight who, but are people just waiting? As soon as there's one big announcement, are the other chips just going to fall?
I think in the heavyweight division, yes, because
Yeah,
they are one. They're looking for that top for those top three contenders, the ones that are with
I
who,
agree.
who has the belts, who has the name, who has the coverage that's going to get the fight fans excited. I think without that in the heavyweight division, then people aren't going to tune in and go, "This is a massive fight." In heavyweight boxing, if you want the stadiums filled out and you want the household names and big ones, I think they are, like you said, they're waiting for contractually who's going to sign the fight, who's going to be the right person for them to fight. And that's where I suppose the money is as well. Because within the heavyweight division, most of these key guys are probably, apart from Fabio and people like that who are younger, they are in their kind of last stretch, aren't they? Usyk's
Mm.
38 now. Tyson's going to be 38. So they're in that kind of category where they're close to 40 and they are heavyweights. What's the longevity of them to fight? Can they fight into 2027? It's looking like a tough one, isn't it? Because it's either this year or, like you said, early next year. We probably, and the fight fans probably don't want to wait that long for this to continue because then it dies, that the hype dies down. And are the fighters what they once were if they're not as physically fit? And once they hit that, oh, we're 40, that's going to be, you're going to be considered almost ancient, aren't you, at that point in boxing?
Yeah, definitely. But the patience of fight fans can never be underestimated. That's one thing that we've learned from Mayweather, Pacquiao, Fury, AJ, all these fights. Even when you convince yourself that you're not interested to see it anymore, all it takes is some great promotion like we've seen from Matchroom and Queensberry historically, and suddenly you're back on the bandwagon. You are really intrigued. So one thing that I do think you hit the nail on the head with there is you said about these guys getting towards the end of their careers, looking at the commercial possibilities. So, with that considered, speaking about what's next for Tyson Fury, I think you must be right. I think it has to be a domestic clash because otherwise, he went on that tour of America. Do you remember after the first
Yeah.
Wilder fight where his profile really gained? He released a book, went on media tours. That elevated his profile, meant that he could demand higher purses. But
Mm.
now he's in that stage of his career where he will only fight for X amount of money, whatever
Yeah.
that is, but he's not going to go below that. And promoters, we're at a time now which is interesting with the sort of Riyadh season uncertainty and the purses have come down somewhat from the initial boom, where Tyson Fury will want to be maximizing his income. So will all the people around him, understandably, because there's only a few paydays left. So his next fight has to be one that will get some kind of casual crossover appeal. And does an American with one defeat or an undefeated American coming over who no one's heard of, does that do anything really? Yes, it's Tyson Fury, but the casual crossover probably won't engage with that kind of fight.
Yeah, you're right. It needs to be a big domestic fight, Wembley, a sellout where the fans are excited for it. You've got a young, hungry Fabio, for example,
Yeah.
Tyson, who's slightly older, but the fans are going to tune in for it because they know it's a big heavyweight clash. They know it's all in, it's British, Matchroom, Queensbury. It's all kind of it's all hype, it's all relevant. It's something I think the fans want to see. And like you said, it's the last big payday for
Mhm.
Tyson because I think that's what he wants, isn't it?
Do you think that it's just because obviously if Fabio Wardley KOs Tyson Fury, it might throw the AJ fight into a certain amount of jeopardy purely because it's so close now. I know that Joshua lost to Dubois previously, but that's Dubois. He's a very good fighter. Fabio Wardley's been extremely underrated for the last few years. People will probably still have Tyson as a slight favourite in that fight, rightly or wrongly. But Wardley beating Joshua, beating Fury is far from out of the question. He could be the man to disrupt everyone's plans.
I think you just put it there. He is the disruptor in the heavyweight division. He's 31 years old. He's got a
Hmm.
95% knockout ratio. He seems to be the guy with this immense power. When I saw him as well, you don't realize how big Fabio Wardley is. Like
Yeah.
he's huge. He's massive. And I think he generates a lot of power in his hits, and I think that's where this 95% knockout, power is coming from. And is it an issue for against a Joshua, like you said, or against a Tyson? It can be because he's younger. He's definitely hungry. He's
Hmm.
determined and he's motivated by this. He wants to cement himself in British boxing as the new heavyweight guy. And I think he slowly is building that name for himself to become that guy.
Again, when he fought at Portman Road, the name escapes me. The Australian who he fought against at Portman Road, who was outboxing him for 9, 10 rounds.
Yeah.
And then Fabio Wardley, he has that in his locker. He's going to be the inferior boxer when he comes across against Tyson Fury. Anyone in that heavyweight division who isn't named Alexander Usyk
Mm,
will more than likely get outboxed by Tyson Fury. He's got an awkward style, ridiculous movement for his size. And Fabio Wardley will know that heading into that
mm.
fight. I know that he said himself that people underestimate me as a boxer. That's fine, they might do. But ultimately, there are going to be fighters who have just got so many more years on you, who've just got that schooling, which means you're going to get outboxed. But Wardley he shouldn't really be too phased by that because he knows that he can eventually walk someone onto that big right hand. And I do think if a fight is announced between Fabio Wardley and Tyson Fury, then Fury cannot underestimate what this guy can do.
Absolutely. Well, it was a couple of months ago that Tyson Fury was saying he didn't really want to get in with the young guys.
Yeah, oh
And
yeah. Yeah, I
Alexander
remember
Usyk was saying that he might be fighting the younger guys. Tyson was like, don't do it. You're 37. The young
that.
guys aren't for you. But now, like you said, it's unprecedented, isn't it? It seems to be like, well, Fury's back. That was when Fury was retired. Now Fury's back. He's in training camp. He seems hungry. It looks like he might want that fight.
Whenever Tyson Fury posts anything online, I always try and like put it through a filter of what's he trying to say? Is he trying to sort of indirect message anyone? Is there some kind of marketing push behind it? So I try not to read too much into that. The Moses Atauma is who he's referring to in that video, wasn't it, with Usyk?
Yeah.
And I think that look, Atauma looks absolutely incredible so far. Barely put a step wrong in the professional game. However, he's completely untested on that world level. We've just not seen it yet. So I understand Fury saying boxing is a young man's game, but really that might have just been some kind of mind games to Usyk, calling him an old man, that kind of thing. We know that Fury wants that fight against Usyk. He's made absolutely no secret about it. When he was asked, it might have actually been at that event you were at, when he was asked by the media, who do you want? Do you want the AJ fight? He says he wants the Usyk trilogy. That's one thing. A proud man like Tyson Fury, who based so much of his character off being the lineal champion, undefeated, the man who got up after Wilder sent him down, that clearly hurt Fury. He clearly felt as though he'd been done badly by the judges in those fights. Whether you agree with that or not is kind of irrelevant. That's how he felt about it. And that is a fight that, for his own legacy, he will really, really desperately want to get back. Whether or not he can do it, who knows? Usyk's, like you say, people forget how old Usyk is purely because he fights like a young man.
Yeah.
But any route in which Fury can get himself back to the Usyk trilogy is the one that I think he'll take.
It's a tough call. There's a couple of names obviously that we've mentioned there, Moses Atamu, but there's a few that we're missing.
You said
Gassier.
Kabayel. You said Kabayel. What do you think? What do you think is next for Kabayel?
Oh, well, I'm glad that you brought him up because Lawrence Okolie is
Of course.
is
The
calling out.
forgotten man. He's
Is
Lawrence Okolie is the forgotten man of the
is
heavyweight
calling
division.
out Ajit Kabale. So it seems that Lawrence wants to now get in on this as well. Lawrence has done really well. Could that be a fight that happens as well this year? He did go over
Yes.
to Germany and he was watching it and he was holding his belts and he was saying, "I'm calling this out." He was standing in the snow in his fur coat. He seems he seems like he wants a bit of this.
This is such an obvious fight to make, and I'm embarrassed that I didn't think about it. You had to stick it in front of me. But Lawrence Okolie is, like I said, he's the forgotten man of this heavyweight division. Nobody's calling him out because it's a massive risk with very little reward. But the
Yeah,
size of the guy, the power, the awkwardness, he's got that long, lanky power, which is just so freakish.
yeah.
Against Kabayel, obviously going to be the shorter man who'll just be working that body of Okolie. It will be an absolute barnstorm of a fight. I can imagine Kabayel having to come through, like he did in his last fight, quite a bit of adversity to try and chip away at Okolie. But Lawrence Okolie, we spoke about Fabio Wardley being the disruptor. Lawrence Okolie could be the man holding the belts at the end of this. I really think he is that good. And he's young, he's in his
He's that
prime,
good.
he's
Yeah.
got everything.
He is that good. I think that's one that, Frank and the team need to get discussing at Queensbury Head HQ. That seems to be, like you said, he's almost the hidden guy in the in
Yeah.
the in the heavyweight division. Like we don't hear too much about him, but he's a promising prospect. He's a promising guy in that division that can certainly deliver knockout power, and he's got the tools for the job.
Yeah, look, cruiserweight champion who was clearly killing himself to get down to that weight. Bridgerweight, make of that what you will. He still won a title there. And now this heavyweight campaign, I must admit, I had my questions at the start of it. But seeing how good he looks at the size, how natural he looks at the
He's
size,
he's completely
with
natural
that
at the size.
frame, with that skill set, there's nobody you can tell me now. I'm going to go so far as to say even Alexander Usyk, who I would say would make light work of Lawrence Okolie. I don't believe that to be the case.
It's because of the impact, the size of the guy.
Yeah,
There's and the reach. It's like I mean, he could just pick away. He could pick away
yeah,
at the heavyweights because he has that long reach, and he's technical. He's tricky. So it's certainly. I mean, we've mentioned some really good names there, and we brought Lawrence up as well, the hidden guy in the heavyweight division. But it seems to be like 2026. If they put pen to paper and they really work on putting these fights together, we could have a really good year for heavyweight boxing.
yeah. I know, I agree. And look, like we said at the very start of this call, I think it's going to take that first match to be made, and then suddenly we're going to see a load of people announcing they're fighting for this, they're fighting for that, eliminator fights. Which fight do you think is going to be announced first? If you had to guess, who do you
If
think
I
is
had
going
to
to get
guess,
matched first?
because of what I'm seeing on social media and with the hype, I'm thinking it's going to be the Chisora Wilder that's going to
Yeah.
be the first one because we're coming up to February now, so it's like the end of Jan, and I think that camp will be announced and that will be signed, and we'll be looking at an April bash between these two heavyweights. I think.
And
What
that's
about
for
you?
an eliminator.
Oof, I think. Well, I think Ajit could be in there. I don't know,
Yeah.
but then again, what's happening with Tyson? There's so much that it's kind of under radar at the moment because Dana White is now coming into boxing.
Yeah.
He's looking to work with Alexander Usyk, so Eliminator wise, it's honestly it's quite hard to call. But the first one I think that we'll hear about, I think will be Chisora Wilder.
Yeah, you could be right there. And it's Dana White's Zuffa Boxing this weekend as well. Have you been paying much attention to that?
I've been following it online and watching the hype for it, but he seems to be coming in with the concept that there's no unification, there's no belts, we're doing it our way, but he is going to have a Zuffa belt like in the UFC, and he wants to keep it all in house. I don't really understand the concept of it because it's obviously going to be a separate entity to the sanctioning bodies of IBF, WBO, WBC. So it's still boxing. It's still got, he obviously brings in a large fight fan base, and
Hmm.
obviously what we're seeing on with his deal with Netflix, with Turkey Al Sheikh, when he was at the Canelo Crawford fight, he seems to be fully immersed in boxing now because I think he's seen how big boxing got last year, what Riyadh season was doing, what the Netflix deals were doing, how globally it was going. He seems to be wanting to pocket in and cash in on the revenue that boxing is now getting to, I think.
Hmm. No, I couldn't agree more. I'm looking forward to it. I think alternatives, competition in this space, where for a long time until the Riyadh season money came in and things like that, it was getting slightly stagnant. So I welcome it. I'm intrigued to watch it this weekend. I will be watching it. Not live. I'll watch it the next day, but I'll catch up on it. And yeah, now I'm intrigued.
It will certainly be a good one to check out, like you said, and who knows, by the end of the week or early next week, we might hear about this April bout between Wilder and Chisora. Thanks for your time today, Alex. Good talking to you.
Appreciate it.
All the best. Thank you.